All right, Josh Dye. Do you still feel the secured party process is not necessary? And if not, why? So, the U.S. citizen was created by the corporate state, right? And what the secured party creditor process is attempting to do is, in a false fashion, trying to capture and obtain securities, interests, titles, and rights to the U.S. citizen, which are not obtainable in that manner. So it's you are creating a record, and I've actually seen it is possible to get remedy inside of a court by doing the SBC, right? But the way courts work is there's no such thing as involuntary servitude. So when someone comes in and they're fighting and proving and putting down records and stuff, yeah, you can prove things, but it's not proper procedures or protocols to try to capture the U.S. citizen and gain control of it, because it's already controlled by the state. The state allows you in multitudes of different ways to use the U.S. citizen. The U.S. citizen is a limited liability franchise buffer that allows you to operate and sail upon the seas of commerce with as a protective layer. It's just a tool. You don't have to use it. Now, trying to control it, it doesn't work because, and I'll give you an example. That's like, let's say you want to start a business. So you start Coca-Cola, you register it with the state. Anything that you register to the state, they control forever. Like, unless you dissolve it, which they'll still have accounting in the background that you can't touch. But anything you register to the state, they control. So let's say you want to start Coca-Cola. So you started Coca-Cola, you registered it to the state. Then all of a sudden you want to try to take full control of it. Well, guess what? When you register something to the state, it must abide by all of the state and local codes, policies, procedures, and protocols to do business within that state that you register it in. Registering, Regis means king. When you register something to the king, you're giving up ownership. You're giving up control of it. So the U.S. citizen was not created by us. Your mom picked the letters of the name of that entity that was registered, right? So what the secure party creditor process is basically doing is, number one, you're trying to control the U.S. citizen that is not yours to control. You didn't create it. Number two, usually they teach how to create fictitious bonds, all right? Now, it is true that any debt obligation in the public is considered money, right? Because the money, the public is bankrupt. So any proof of a debt is considered an accounts receivable in some sense, if you can enforce it, right? But you got to know how to basically do private administrative procedures and stuff like that. So when you create a fake debt obligation on the U.S. citizen, now you can do first in time, first in line with liens. But what you're doing with the secure party creditor process is you are harming the credit of the U.S. citizen for no reason. Like, it's just a tool that you can use. You don't even have to use it. So I hope that clears up some stuff, right? You might be thinking something else, and I might be hitting on different subjects that you didn't even think about. But like I said, a lot of the times they'll teach you to they'll try to teach you to create a trust, right? The U.S. citizen is already a trust. Now, when you start learning trust law and corporate law, you can understand that trusts can be trustees of other trusts, and they can be beneficiaries of holding companies that can be, the grantors of other LLCs. Like, it can get crazy. Like, it can get nuts. And that's what a lot of the wealthy people do to try to, like, flim-flam, hide money, use pass-through entities, a.k.a., BIDEN, like, he's like number one on freaking moving around funds through trusts and stuff. So is Clinton's. So a lot of the SPC processes will teach you to create a trust, right? And then they tell you to put like the social security number in it. And first of all, you don't hold true title to the U.S. citizen. And you don't hold true title to the social security. And they're trying to teach you to put all this stuff inside of a trust, then create bonds off of it, and then try to monetize all that stuff. And it's basically false teachings that will send you to jail, if you're not understanding what you're doing. And any judge that allows you to get a remedy through the SBC process just feels sorry for you, because when you do a UCC1 on that entity, you're basically creating a proof of a record, right? And most of the time, you want to try to use a transmitting utility, because a transmitting utility on a UCC1 is a perpetuity filing, where usually UCC1s only last for 5 years. But if you do the UCC1 on the entity, you're harming the credit of the U.S. citizen, which is just a tool that you can use. You don't even have to use it. So it's like, why even go down that road of harming the credit of an entity that they control it? They control it. But when you go to court, and I was talking about this in my last live, they do need, because there's no such thing as involuntary servitude, they're not just administering all the accounts of everybody's U.S. citizens without our consent, right? They need our consent as the trustee, because we're the trustees of their property, right? So they control it. They're the grantors, and we're the trustees, and they're the beneficiaries. So as the trustees, they need our permission for us to for them to liquidate the bonds and create all kinds of liabilities and fractionalize stuff on the private side in the court. So when you go to court, yes, they need your permission, or they need to get it by getting jurisdiction over you so that they can administer the account, because there's no such thing as involuntary servitude. And if they start administering and doing things without your consent, then you can basically hold their feet to the fire on liability, because they're not allowed to administer. You're the trustee. You're the one in charge, of the all the debts and all the obligations of the U.S. citizen that they created. But they do need your consent, because, like I say, you're the trustee. All right. Live free, die free. Give up your citizenship. Become a true American. Get out of the United States corporation. So that's when you're early stages trying to learn about all this stuff, it can be very, very confusing. And first of all, we're not in the U.S. The U.S. is a corporation that's located in the District of Columbia, and through the Buck Act and various other mechanisms, they created a false federal jurisdiction over the whole American, like a clear blanket overlay that doesn't really exist. And everybody just believes it does, so they're operating in that manner. But when you first start learning out, it's like, drop the citizen, drop the name, do this, that. It's just a tool. Now, you got to remember that, we're all in this together, and we've got to figure out ways to survive. We've got to figure out ways to get food. We've got to figure out ways to keep the lights on. I wish everything was nonprofit, but that's not the way everything is operating out there. That is a much more honorable system, but unfortunately, everybody is bound by greed and mammon and wants to work for profit. So they're taxed. We're all taxed, and anybody who supports those systems are taxed as worker bees. Now, the U.S. corporation is just a corporation. The U.S. citizen is just a corporation. They are living in the world of the dead. They are basically bankrupt entities that need some type of entity of like kind to interface with. So you either have to use a U.S. citizen to interface with them. You either have to use a trust or a national or an agent who's in themselves is going to use a trust or a corporation or an entity or another agent to interface with the public, because the public is bankrupt and is a corporation, and it needs another corporation to interface with. So unless you're going to live in the woods or off grid or completely be self-sustained, meaning make your own food, clothes, and everything, then you're going to have to figure out a way to interface with the bankrupt corporation, with another corporation. And one of the good paths is a corporation soul, which is controlled by a sovereign and created by a sovereign, and it's by statute acknowledged that a sovereign created it. That's a very, very unique entity. So, long story short, you need some type of corporation to interface with the bankrupt public with, and you can choose whichever type you want, or you have to have an agent with a corporation to interface them with. So, Joey Westgate, hello Charles, I'm the man. Thank you, I appreciate it, Joey. We're all in this together, man. I'm just trying to help a little bit. Seth Smith, Alabama birth certificate already reads certificate of live birth. Does that help make a difference? No, it's just I have a playlist that can help indoctrinate a lot of people, but it's long. It takes a while to go through all the stuff. So what I usually suggest with something like that, when you have a specific talking about the birth certificate is 10, at least 10 things. And I made a video on it. And I think it's my Commerce Part, is it 2 or 3? Commerce Part 2 or 3 video. Explains everything. if it's properly authenticated, it's a tender letter. It's a bill of lading. It's a certificate of good standing, meaning it's you're able to do business with that corporation. It's a certificate of origin, basically where the corporation was started and all that stuff. It's a lot of different things. So I have a video on the 10 things that a birth certificate is that you can watch. It's just a piece of paper for a corporation. Depending on what you're trying to do. Most people are trying to chase the dragon and go after the private equity side of the U.S. citizen, and that is a very lengthy, hard process. And I also have a video on that, which is in my discharging debt video. But that's something that you can watch at some time if you want to. All right, so correct exactly. All right, Joey. Seth Smith, in the ASN process. Oh, he's talking about American State National process? No, so the State National is just a trust corporation that has been expressed by the human, which is owing allegiance to a Republican state. So, and it's by statute. It's a person. It's called a person to the TSA.gov or Travel Administration. It's just a person. It's a corporation. Like, you have to have a corporation to interface with the public. Now, a State National can hold a passport. A State National can do certain things. I wouldn't engage in for-profit public commerce with it, but all you really have to do, you don't even need a piece of paper to have a national. All you have to do is owe allegiance to a Republican state with your mind, body, and soul, and boom, it's been expressed. It's there. But for memorialization, it's always great to have paperwork, and I have templates in my Commerce ID State National or National. I don't know. It's under my Commerce ID section on my website. Guys, this live will be on YouTube. If you go onto my website, you'll see a lot of my social media links on my TikTok profile page. This audio will be on my Telegram, and I have playlists on my profile page to help the public with a lot of things as well. David Allen, thanks for the follow. Are you a American State National? So David, the State National, the national is just a trust. It's just a corporation. It's a person, quote unquote person. It's by statute it's a corporation. I'm not the corporation. I'm not even this flesh body that's talking to you. It's just something I'm temporarily using. But the State National is a trust corporation. I have expressed one before. And I have a U.S. citizen that does certain things. I have a national that does certain things. I have different corporations and entities that do all kinds of different things, depending on what you're trying to accomplish and your goals and stuff like that. Seth Smith, great, thanks. You're welcome. Peak Knuckle. How about reclaiming of your trade names by deed of reconveyance? What's your trade name? It almost sounds like you're trying to do the what's that? It's actually only for estates where you return the certificate. I used to be familiar with all this stuff and I can't remember. It's just been so long. All right, Seth Smith. Also, Bama had a law which allows you to record marriages with a Bible or book of worship. Yeah, so that's there's a lot of different ways to memorialize different records, right? And marriage, one of them is an acceptable, exception to the hearsay rule is a record like inside of a Bible, and that is accepted in a lot of states as far as memorialization in a Bible, a family Bible. Right now, it can't be one from like Walgreens that you just start writing in. It's a family Bible, like one that has a lot of history in it. So that is a way to put a record in. All right, Joey, why do people authenticate their birth certificate? Because there is so much false information on how to easily, and basically a lot of the elites allow some of this information to circulate to misguide and mislead everybody astray because it has a little bit of truth sprinkled in with it, and everybody runs with it, and they spend thousands of dollars paying for all of this different type of information, and it's all false, so that is what typically a person authenticates a birth certificate for. Is you either want to leave the country and set up shop somewhere else, or you're trying to go through the DTC. It's up in the air whether or not you need to send it to the Secretary of State in order for to discharge I'm sorry, the Treasury to discharge debt because they're already authorized to do that. They don't need the certificate. They just need proof that you are a U.S. citizen. And so my understanding is any information that you're hailing from the birth certificate that you can put on the trust indentures to tell your trustee in order to set off, settle, and close certain debts. You can already put that. You don't need to have a freaking authenticated birth certificate in order to discharge a phone bill or something, you know. My website is Anointed New Foundation of Peace. It is located on my profile page of TikTok. It's linked right there, along as all of my profile playlists that are there. Foundation, Nature, Spirit, and Commerce. And it will change your entire world if you go through the playlist. And on my website's all my social media links. All right, so Peak Nug, all the versions of the capital letter names. Yeah, they're all just different corporations. I mean, and this, I love Jimmy. We butt heads all the time. So Jimmy was trying to tell me that the name has value, and it's like it doesn't, because there are like 150 different John Does. You know what I'm saying? It's the social, it's the tax ID number, and that is the separating issuance that has the value. Because your mom could have picked any random letters, you know, triangle, square, X, and that's your name. You know, it's the underwriting Social Security that actually has the bonds and all the value and stuff. That's the accounting part of the name. The name is just the initial name of the corporation. It's just a corporation. Of course, a name can have value. Yes, I mean, you know, just like the word love has value. You know, I mean, yeah, it has value, but in their system, when you know he was trying to say if you offer up the name of surety. Or offer up the name as like a joinder or something. I can't remember what it was, but it is the Social Security that underwrites it that has the value, not the name itself. All right, Seth. I think groups are getting away from the sovereign term because its original designation. And that's fine. We're all sovereign already. And what a lot of law enforcement tries to teach is that sovereign citizens is like an enemy, is combative. It is, and there are a lot of people. Once you start becoming awake and learning how the system was designed, everybody goes through different phases of like how they feel about it, because it is a very twisted game, and we have all been bamboozled. We've all had smoke and mirrors shoved up our butt and over our eyes. Like we've all been confused, right? And that's the world that's been pulled over our eyes. Well, I'm here to help try to clear up a lot of that mess, because the U.S. is just a corporation. The U.S. citizen is just a corporation. We've all been the sovereigns every day, and I can prove it to you. Who told you what to wear this morning? Who told you what direction to take when you hit the steps, the streets? Like, who told you to brush your teeth? You did. You have the choice. You have the unlimited ability to contract and shape your world through the contracts that you keep on a day-to-day basis. It's up to you. We are all sovereign because we have the divine spark of the Creator within us. We're all fractals of the Creator, and we all have the ability to express through our free will what we want, and we can actually shape our world through the mental capacity that we express outward in our energy and stuff like that. Queenie, hey, how you doing? What about trademarking the all caps? Does that go with turning in certificates? So you can trademark the name. Most people try to say copyrighting, but you can't really copyright U.S. letters and symbols because it's just there's too many of them that are similar. But you can trademark the U.S. citizen name, but again, it was created by somebody else, so you're just trademarking somebody else's stuff. It is a record that is enforceable depending on what you're trying to do, but the turning in the certificate, when you authenticate the birth certificate, you have a couple different routes you can go. You can send it to the alien property custodian, which they don't really need it in order to set off, settle, and close debts. You can send it through the DTC, or you can send it to another country if you're moving. Like, that's the only purpose for authenticating the certificate or turning it in or trying to return it. That's what the rule was, is returning the certificate. And that's about real estate, but I can't remember. Minnesota Rule 220, there you go. Minnesota Rule 220 says that you can, return the certificate, but it's all talking about real estate. It has nothing to do with the birth certificate. You can do whatever you want with that certificate. It is an issuance number of common stock of that trust corporation that's controlled by the state. But like I said, the main three things are either you're leaving the country, you just want a really cool record, or you're going through the DTC. Yes, you're right, Queenie. We are all already sovereign. Appreciate that. Sovereign is viewed as a yes. It is, Seth, and that's part of reverse psychology to try to get everybody to be on the same page, right? Like as an enemy. So the public and what the enemies do out in the public is they always want to create division, never unity, right? And that's part of what the enemy does with the natural light and the rulers of the world is they want to create division, and they never ever teach unity because of how powerful we would be if we understood that we are all one and we are all into this together, right? So the calling sovereigns as terrorists is all part of a ploy to try to keep you from ever even wanting to look at that. And then a lot of sheep, as soon as they see some public mainstream media narrative that says anybody who says they're sovereign is a terrorist, like they'll be like, oh gosh, no, let's never ever talk about that or be around that or learn that, you know. And so, and they'll all teach their sheep family and their sheep friends all this stuff like, oh my gosh, the cops are going to kill sovereigns, blah blah blah. But we're all sovereign, you know. We can give up our sovereign rights, our unalienable sovereign rights for benefits and privileges through contracting all we want. And that's what happens a lot of times is our U.S. citizen will take benefits and privileges, and that's what's granted to a subject on the plantation is benefits and privileges. But we as the human, the unlimited sovereigns, have the unlimited ability to do whatever we want. But again, we give up a lot of our sovereignty through contracting for benefits and privileges. Chevy Bronco, nice username, and full faith and credit is if you go out of this country, not for this country. Are you talking about like the sleepy night forever give up, like die for the corporation? I don't know. By the SPLC, what? By the SPLC. Who's the SPLC? All right, Peak Knuckle 43. With those names, they become copyrighted, so it's not just the number that offers protection from use. Yeah, so when you're, it's the same thing that happens when you register any business, right? Here we have the County Corporation Commission or something, and they give you a SCC number. It's a filing. Once you start and register a corporation, you get a SCC number, or SCC, State Corporation Commission number. That is a very unique number that is basically proof that it's allowed to do business. Like the same thing happens when you start the corporation known as your U.S. citizen. When that's registered and good business, that information is all baked into the birth certificate. That the corporation has been registered, it meets all the filing criteria, it's able to do business, its point of origin, it gives the product information as far as if it's male, female, got a hoof print on it, got the weight and all that stuff of the product, and it's good for trading international. It's like I said, it's a tender letter and a lot of other things. I have a video on all the things that a birth certificate is. Seth, you're welcome for the feedback. Tress Valentine, can you advise on how to transfer and authenticate a birth certificate in my trust? Boom. Yeah, if you listen to the beginning of this audio on YouTube, I basically laid it out for a long time talking about how the SBC process is falsely teaching people to try to put stuff like their social security card or their birth certificate or all that stuff into a trust. The U.S. citizen is already a trust that is controlled. Once you register something, the state is already controlled by them. That's all false. Most likely you had to pay for that, and most likely there's people teaching you can get a free house if you're doing this stuff, like all this stupid false information that everybody pays for and eats up because it has just a little bit of truth sprinkled into it. But putting a birth certificate into a trust is basically you don't have true title to the U.S. citizen, so you want to be very careful when you're ever putting something in trust that you do not control true title to, because there's underlying obligations and duties to that object that you're putting into trust. So you want to be careful when you do stuff like that. The SBC process is garbage, and I'm sorry for anybody who's paid for it. I have a free one on my website if you want to. You can go under class UCL and take the $1,000 course that I paid for. That's garbage. It's on there for free if anybody wants to go through it. It's like a 12-week, 13-week class. You learn a little bit of stuff. I mean, it's pretty cool to teach about postal regulations and things like that. But I always suggest, like, watch the playlist I've created on my profile, and it will clear up a lot of the misinformation that all these false pirates are out there teaching everybody and leading people astray. Joey, I missed the subject. UCC1 is a bad idea to file. Yes, it's a bad idea to file. You're going to harm the credit of the U.S. citizen, and it's not your property to even do that manner with. Technically, nobody will, if you bring the UCC1 into a court case, technically nobody's going to wave the flag and say, "Oh, that's not your property to do that with," because you are the trustee of it, right? You've been given that name as a trustee to take care of, to earn revenue for the creditors who've created that entity to do business. So when you're doing stuff like that, you're harming the entity that you don't even control true title to. You don't control true title to the U.S. citizen. And then a lot of people will teach you to try to create bonds off of. They'll try to create some fake debt obligation, put it on a UCC1, and then start issuing bonds off of it. Like, good luck with that. You're going to jail, right? If you try to do anything with those bonds into the Treasury or in the court or whatever, we aren't authorized to mess with the banking system in that manner. There are ways that we can mess with the banking system, but that's not one of them. Creating bonds, you got to be very, very careful. So, the Mad Gray, do you have a link to your Dropbox on the website? I should have bookmarked it. So all of the different paths on my website, so if you go on my website, I have them broken down to nature, spirit, and commerce. All of those are different paths that go to all the three different Dropboxes that actually are linked to my desktop. So I upload and update information on my website all the time, and it automatically updates to the website through the Dropbox links. So if you go on my website, on my profile page of TikTok, click on it. All three of my Dropboxes are right there, Nature, Spirit, and Commerce, and you can start to browse for free. Thank you, Tori Davis. Love and appreciate you too. Oh, you found it. Cool. Is that different from an EIN? The Social Security, so there's a Social Security, there's a SIN, there's a SIN, there's a FEIN, there's a EIN, there's a TIN, there's so many different tax identification numbers, but SCC number here in Virginia, whenever you create a corporation, they'll give you a SCC number, which is a State Corporation Commission number, which just basically means that it's in good standing, it's paid the filing fees, it's ready to do business, it's registered in the state, but all that's already baked into the birth certificate when it's created. What about your house in trust? Yes, you can put stuff in trust. I'm not saying even if you don't hold true title to it, you can still put it in trust. But guess what? You can put your house in trust all day, but if you don't pay taxes on it, guess what? Since you don't hold true title to it, if you don't pay taxes, they're going to come take the house. It don't matter if it's in trust or not. It could be in trust all day long. It could be inside of a trust that's an LLC to another holding company that's part of a an S corp or whatever. Like, if you don't pay taxes on that house because you don't control true title to it, somebody can come and snatch it, take it right from under you. It don't matter what kind of trust it's in. And that's why it's very important to understand how stuff works. If you're going to have true title to it, then you can put it into trust outside of U.S. jurisdiction or inside of U.S. jurisdiction. It's up to you at that point when you have true title to stuff. It takes a while to learn this stuff. I have more information on business structures on my commerce folder of my website. Alright, Vanessa, hold on. Oh, I love you too, Guru Sude. Thank you for coming on. You're so amazing. Peak Knuckle. Wouldn't operating under those numbers in the de facto recognize a jurisdiction versus the de jure republic? Are you talking about using the Social Security number and the EIN and the FEIN and all that? Because it's just a registration number for doing business. Like when you do a tax ID number on a corporation, like it's just a number for doing business. It's kind of neutral, right? The IRS was set up by the creditors in order to monitor all of the funds, public fund transfers of the Federal Reserve notes, because that's their property and they want to have a yield on it, and the corporations are bankrupt that are messing with it and all that. They're in debt. So they've been set up to honorably track all numbers and movement of what happens with each EIN, SIN, FEIN, TIN, all that on all these corporations. So, but when it comes to what you do with the number, it's neutral, right? It's not necessarily for public or private. You can do whatever you want with that number. You can do private banking with that number, but you got to know how to do it. Usually, all private banking is done on a closed account. All right, so you're welcome. You're welcome. Wouldn't operate under those numbers. All right, so again, told you depends on what you do with it. What do you know about David Straight? Mike, I love David Straight. He's a great teacher. He's taught me a lot of things. I have a lot of his information on my website as far as classes. Like, he's real good at talking about how to go after bonds and stuff like that. Obviously, the man did not know clearly about traveling without a license, because and that was actually how I started releasing all this commercial stuff, is because somebody was going to send people out to get harmed and arrested because they didn't have a true understanding of how to truly operate sovereignly, right? You got to give notice, and you have to be at peace. David was one of the many people that were very ignorantly taught. Somehow, he's a smart guy, was taught that there's a do not detain list, which does not exist, because the police and the federal government and army and military, their job is to protect foreign and domestic terrorism threats. That means that it doesn't matter who you are, who you think you are. If you're around here and you're sticking out like a red flag or doing crazy stuff or being engaged in belligerent enemy activities, they have a right to inspect. During times of war, you have a right to inspect your enemies, okay? So be prepared to be inspected. If you're going to be traveling around, it don't matter if you've given notice, right? You can allow, during times of war, they have a right to inspect to make sure you're not engaged in enemy activities, And David didn't know all this somehow, which blew my mind, because, I mean, he's freaking rubbing shoulders with Donald Trump. He's been freaking saving kids all over the earth with all this stuff. Like, I thought for sure he would know better than to try to teach people that there's a do not detain list. And anybody who ever teaches you that there's a do not detain list, do not listen to them, because you're going to be hurt. You're not allowed to do whatever you want. You have to be at peace and in love, and then you'll be safe. Like, so just embody that. It makes sense. Yeah. Thanks for following. On the Seat. I added your website to the homepage. Awesome, man. I need to come check out the website. I've been on there. It's just been a while. I've been real busy. I met a beautiful girl, and we've been talking and traveling and stuff like that. So, contract law, contract law says there can't be a contract without your permission and consent. Your parents can't. That's one of the equitable maxims that you can try to enforce, but that's not true. Because through contracts start verbally and through actions. Like, I could flick you on the nose, right? You're not saying anything, but if I just flick you on the nose, you're consenting. If you just let me keep flicking you on the nose and you don't say stop, you're consenting. You're contracting with me. You're allowing me to, like, basically abuse you. Even if you don't say anything. So through tacit acquiescence, by not responding, that is actually a form of agreement. So even though you didn't choose your name at birth, and you didn't know your parents were creating a corporation and they were giving up ownership of that corporation to the state and registering to do business, all that stuff, it doesn't matter. By your actions, by you using that U.S. citizen out there in the seas of commerce, one of those maxims is you can't contract without your permission. But guess what? Through your acts and actions, you are proving that you know what you're doing. Because if you're going to be engaged in commerce, it is presumed that you know what you are doing. So that's why you got to be very, very careful if you're going to be engaged in commerce. Because that's one of the maxims also, is if you're engaged in it, you know what you're doing. It's Jeslove. How do you feel about putting an apartment in a private trust? So most likely you don't own the true title to it. And I've heard somebody try to tag me in a video saying, or they were DMing me. They were like, "Yo, I'm going through a foreclosure. I'm going to put my apartment in a trust, and that's going to stop everything." And I'm like, "What?" It might slow the court down a little bit, but no, you don't hold true title to the apartment. It's not, that's probably part of a building that is controlled by somebody else, that's controlled by another company. You're so far down the line. Now, you can put the apartment in a private trust if you're trying to protect all of your assets. Weatherby, thank you for the rose. Much appreciated. Your gifts will be used to enlighten others through promotions. And I just learned to pick my audience because TikTok's default is some garbage. So I'm not gonna let them. I'm gonna do my best to try to change my default from them, but I don't know how to do that. Joey, it is hard to get a low deal title for a house and car. It takes either a lot of money. You need to either get an unsecured private loan to get all the money and pay the car off outright. You can't get a lien on it because if the bank gets a hold of that sucker and puts a private loan on it, they're putting a lien on it, and that means that they're going to have lien is controlling a form of controlling title. It's first in time, first in line, but when you get the bank involved, they're going to register it to the state. They're going to get the MSO and give it to the state, which means the state's going to control it. Then they're going to have a lien on it, which is a priority of the paramount security interest over the property. So you got to be careful. With a house, it's a lot different. You need to go to the Bureau of Land Management and do a title search, and you need to clear up any cloudy titles, any liens on the property. You need to find out when and where the king granted the title, the true title, like basically back when the colonists were coming on to the land and they were trying to be indentured servants and they were out spreading and stuff like that. The king started granting parcels and patents to different foremans and supervisors and on and on and on. So you got to do a land patent search back to the original grant from the king. Then you need to figure out if anybody is alive in the lineage of who that title was granted to. So let's say it was granted to John Doe over here, right? If the king granted that title, true title, which is a low deal title, to John Doe, and he has family that's alive, you need to make sure that either they know about it or don't want it or whatever, because this is how this works, right? It's a lineage thing. If there's no successors, no lineage, no liens, no cloudy, whatever, then you can do what is called a grantee acceptance on that basically document. That will merge the previous trust out in the public. Then you can record that, and then basically you hold true title at that point. Once you record a grantee acceptance of, again, it can't be cloudy. You have to have true title on it, whatever. That might be my car, guys. Actually. I'm getting my brakes fixed. So, yeah, they're leaving a message. I don't even know when they close. Let's see, where are we at? So if you start an LLC, government owns it since you get an EIN from them. So the IRS is not the government. That's just an accounting firm that was hired by the creditors of the U.S. So the Earth is flat, VetCam. From what I've seen, I haven't. I've done a lot of research, and I ain't seen no curve, man. Other than what they're pushing to the public mainstream narrative. Aren't property taxes considered unnecessary services for use fees? No, that's part of, because they control the property. They're the ones that get to dictate how they want their trustees to pay or their trustees to use it, or same thing happens with a car. Like when you register that car, they control true title to it. They're the beneficiaries and they're the grantors. You're the trustee. You got to pay all the taxes, titles, tags, fees. You got to take care of it. But you can get equitable interest in it if you sell it. You can pee on it. You can slam it into a wall. Like they allow you to do all kinds of things with their property. But part of the trustee's duties is paying all the taxes for allowing them to hold true title to it. That's one of the benefits of not self-governing. You get to pay all the taxes on it. So all this on real needs to stop. The only way to do this true wisdom is by everybody self-governing, because the maxim is you either need to govern yourself or it will be done for you. How does the do not detain apply to diplomatic immunity? How do they attain that protection? So even a diplomat that has diplomatic immunity will be detained if they're doing something crazy. They might not go to jail for a long time, but even the diplomatics with diplomatic immunity will be detained, and then they will be deported. Okay, if they're not allowed to be arrested on our soil, they will still get detained. Okay, if they're doing something crazy or doing something wrong, they kill somebody, hurt somebody, whatever, they're still getting arrested. They might not stay in jail here, but they're getting detained. And that's why I try to tell everybody who tries to teach, oh, once you remove your name or do this to the IRS or whatever, oh, you've got diplomatic immunity and you're on the do not detain list. Like, no, you're not. You're going to get arrested, especially if you don't know how to handle yourself around your servants, right? If you don't even know how to address them and understand that they are your servants and they're there to protect and serve you, like, and you're coming as a belligerent or coming whatever, you're getting hemmed up. You're going to get in trouble. Mike. Well, what about full disclosure with all this? So again, it's through your acts and actions, Mike, that it's presumed that you understand what you're doing. Like messing with a Federal Reserve note, if you're going to be engaged in that type of public commerce, it is presumed that you know what you're doing because you're using it and you're messing around. Like that is a maxim in law. And like govern yourself or it'll be done for you. It's presumed that you know what you're doing if you're going to be engaged in commerce. And, you know, I know we're not taught all this stuff, but it's all by design. So by our acts and actions, we're presumed that we know what we're doing, even though we don't. It's very clear with everybody who's in jail by their own agreement. That's if you were informed in the first place. Yeah. No, you can get a Lodial title. You can create your own Title 210. It's very, very possible to get a Lodial. A lot of people get it, but it's a double-edged sword because you know, like if you take your house out of the tax bracket and jurisdiction, all that stuff, you can't use any public transmitting utilities like power or sewage or water. They're not going to collect your trash anymore. Fire department won't come and help if it's burning. The ambulance won't come on there if you're dying. The police won't come on there if you're getting broken in and shot. All that stuff. So it's a double-edged sword. That little bit of taxes that you pay does help for all those services, right? You get trash pickup, you get water, you get sewage, you get all this stuff. So, like I said, if you're gonna take your property out of the tax register, roster, whatever, be careful because it's like I said, you got to be ready. What about the double charge for houses and car loans? That is kind of a trick, you know, and that's part of the banking, the private side where all the real assets are. Our signature on a promissory note actually creates the funds, and we actually already buy everything to begin with, and then we're turned around and tricked into believing that they loaned us something, and that's you can call them out on that, and you can get them in a procedure and get your stuff back because you already paid for it. You can prove it. Look up the affidavit of Walker F. Todd. Like he was a professional banking witness, and he basically admits on the record that when you sign a promissory note, you give the bank an asset that they ledger on their book to create funds off of, like from our signature, our promise. So, like, bring that in. Say, hey, look, I already paid for this. Why are you trying to say that you loaned me something? Like, I'm the one that created all the money. Monica, what if you file a 1099-A on a mortgage, then file a UCC? So a mortgage is called a death grip, and it is basically controlled by banks and the state. And when you get into default, they basically let me take this. I think this is my car. Hold on, I've never done this. Hello.
Hey Charles, Brian up at Sunoco.
Hey, how you doing? All right, unmute. Oh, I'm so sorry y'all missed that beautiful call about my rotors on my car. I did a lot of traveling, so I ate up some breaks. Where were we on? Now I get to do some editing and cut out that dead spot. Follow the live. Thanks for the follow. Can we let car dealerships and no, they ask in the Social Security fund attached to citizens? The Social Security number is just basically a taxing ID number for all the transactions that it's basically required if you're going to be engaged in for-profit public commerce. Peak Knuckle, doesn't a Lodial title require paying 99 years of taxes? What? I've never heard of that in my life. that a allodial title requires paying 99 years of taxes. Like, that's, I don't know where you got that from. That's new to me. 100% Cancer. Oh, what's up, Cancer? How you doing? Nice to see you, buddy. All right, random game. Paying taxes is a precondition of employment for federal employees. That is true. And the Social Security number is the linchpin. I've actually seen the code, and I can find it if somebody asks. I've seen the code that says anybody who uses a federal benefits program, which the Social Security is, it's a Social Security insurance federal benefits program. Anybody who uses a federal benefits program is a federal employee. The Social Security number is the linchpin that creates the U.S. citizen into a federal employee. Then you turn around and you're engaged for public profit and commerce in a zip coded area, which is a federal area, for profit, which is taxable, for a company that is registered, owned, and controlled in a public federal district also. So you're so federaled up by the time you start engaging in business with that U.S. citizen, and it has all those liens on it. It's got a federal, a state, a local, a medical lien on it, and all that stuff. Like, it's a tricky game to try to, you can just dock it. Guru, thank you for sending the heart. I love you. So it's a very tricky game, and we're not taught any of this stuff, right? So it's just easier to dock it, right? Just dock the U.S. citizen, don't mess with it, and create a new trust, right? You don't have to create a trust that's within the U.S. jurisdiction. You can create a trust outside of U.S. jurisdiction. You can create a trust that is the trustee of another trust that is the trust of the national. The national can hold true title to stuff, and you create buffer liability shields through all those steps if you want to do that. Beauty is her name. Can we? All right, we already did that. Paying taxes. Heart Eye, Roxy. So what is the best way to purchase a car without them owning it? So you can use Federal Reserve notes, right? Because that's the common medium of exchange that everybody's used for. So you basically pay for the car outright with no liens, and then you have to tell them you're taking that vehicle out of the state. You can tell them you're taking it to the District of Columbia, or you're taking it to Egypt, you're taking it wherever. Then they'll give you the MCO. If they register the MCO or MSO, that is the true title of origin of that vehicle. If they register the MCO to the state, that state, basically what happens at that point is the VIN number of that vehicle and that MCO merge and become one with the state, and the state now controls true title to that vehicle, and they can recommend that their trustees do all the taxes, tags, titles, insurance, all that crap. If you get the MCO, you will hold true title to that car. It is then suggested to put it in trust, okay? Because that is everything out there is in trust. And that's the best way to operate with. But that's just I'm telling you how to, and I have a video on this. I have a video on getting true title to car. I have a video on true title to kids, how to marry outside of the state, all this stuff. So, you can watch those videos if you want on my profile. I bought a car from the U.S. government, Diplomatic Crown Victoria. I even got a government title. Yeah, that's cool. My neighbor got a Humvee. It's pretty dope. Thank you, Goro, for the rose. You're so sweet. My friend got, what is that, big love heart? Thank you, sweetheart. My friend got a freaking Humvee. This thing is cool because it can run off of anything flammable. You can run this vehicle off of hairspray. Like, you can put vodka in it. You can put kerosene, jet fuel, which is JP5. You can put freaking gasoline, diesel, freaking like corn, fryer oil. Like, this thing will run off of anything. It's pretty cool. It's like, but it also has a government title to it. But it's federally owned up. It's leaned up. Samoko Chukaro, does a public library really public, and does it policy really apply to the public? Yeah, public, maybe you meant public policy is for the public. And we're not taught this stuff, but all the written laws and the public policies, codes, and statutes and stuff, they bind people for a reason. Like, a lot of people don't know how to operate outside of that jurisdiction or how to be sovereign, all that stuff. So it binds them for a reason, because if you don't know how to govern yourself, other people will govern you for you. And that is, welcome to the 10 billion public policies, codes, statutes of the federal government, the local government, the city government, the state, like all that stuff. Like, forever. Everybody is bound by that unless they have the knowledge and understanding that they're outside of it, and it's basically their U.S. citizen that is bound by that stuff. But we're the authorized representative for the U.S. citizen, and we are in charge of its liabilities. What affidavit? What beauty is her name? What are you talking about? VetCam, the earth is what you perceive it to be. That is true. That is the key right there, Ancient 1K. And that actually blew my mind. So, and I'll give you a little story. When I found out about nature, spirit, and commerce, I was for sure. This is why I always come from the humble opinion that I know nothing and I'm just a student, right? I thought for sure when I had been revealed about nature, spirit, and commerce, this triangle behind me, right, that this was everything that there could ever be. There is nothing that you can think of, perceive, or grasp, or whatever that is not involved in this triangle, right? Then I was revealed there is something else. People that have no clue about any of this. Their reality doesn't have any of this. To them, through them and their perception, this doesn't exist. So there's another element to this, right? But I was like, I thought for sure there's no way that anything could be outside of this. Go to, what is that, a baby turkey? Thanks, sweetheart. You're freaking awesome. You need a allodial title for property before you can pursue not paying taxes. Yes, you would have to take the property title out of the tax roster in order to basically not pay taxes. Okay, and if you don't pay taxes, they're going to come take it from you. That's how you can tell who the true controlling party of interest is over any property. Don't pay taxes on it. The true controlling party of interest over that property will come knocking, and they will come get their stuff if you don't pay taxes on their stuff, because you're the trustee and one of their obligations to do that. Samoko, thank you for the blue. There's things that are so tiny on my screen. I don't know what it is, but I appreciate all the gifts. Whoa, am I that far behind on freaking questions? Be a little title. Mort Gage. Yeah, Death Grip. That's what Mort Gage is. Ancient 1K. It's jinns on the minds of the masses holding the conscious from being fully aware. 100%. Yep. There's so many different names for the angels, and a lot of them get awarded and rewarded for what they do, especially keeping us from becoming one and one with the creators and in love and unity. Renee says no. Laugh. You were about to explain Mort Gage? Oh. Mort Gage, no, it means death grip. So a Mort Gage is a death grip on the home. That is basically a lien, is a paramount lien. And a lot of people, look, by nature we're lazy, and what happens is we get into default, and then all of a sudden we want to try to get out of stuff. Like when you signed up to be the lender, like you borrowed money. Yes, our signature created all the funds and we own the house, but then you turn around and sign contracts, right? Contracts are enforceable, guys. We can create our own contracts. You can create your own law. You don't have to be bound by all the laws and public policies and statutes that are created by these stupid fictitious quasi-governments. You can create your own law, and that's the highest form of law, and that's what I try to teach on my private administrative procedures. Like, you can create your own law and bind everybody that stays silent, through agreement. Like, there's no such thing as involuntary servitude, so you got to get them in agreement. But the Mort Gage is a death grip that is on the property, even though it's not, they don't have true title to the property. This is the only thing that you can take out of their control that was registered to them, because they didn't actually have true title to the property. They're just operating under color of title. So when you go to the king's actually paramount granted patent and you do a grantee acceptance on it, you're taking the paramount security interest over that property. They're operating under color of title. But when you get into a default in the mortgage, you're so far behind. Like they say in the loan agreement, that if you miss one payment, they can start foreclosure. And then what they usually do is they wait 2 or 3 missed payments, and then they start coming after you. Like, you're so far behind at that point, like, you're out back. You're done. So, yeah, that's what happens with the mortgage. I'm seeing you as I hop on. What? Enrique? Oh, y'all are talking to each other. Not true. Whatever you paid into... Not true. Whatever you paid into, you receive. You don't want to give up that benefit. Renee, I don't know what you're talking about. Doing well, my friend. Cops are being investigated on what they did. Awesome. Heck yeah. I've heard you. If they're drilling holes in your door and freaking sending drones and all that stuff, but yeah, that's a bit much. But, They do that kind of stuff all the time. And the funniest thing is they always act like their lapel camera doesn't work whenever like I'm dealing with them. It's like all of a sudden, their recording devices weren't calibrated and aren't working. Isn't that convenient? Live free die. You cannot get a lodial title in the United States Corporation. Yeah, I know. Not in the United States Corporation. Wow. Thank you for the heart, sweetheart. You're like my number one. You're my number one, babe. Where are we? I don't know where the heck I'm at. Aren't presumptions. But yeah, the U.S. corporation, they never had true title to the houses anyway. That's what I was saying. Like, they conquered it through false federal jurisdictions, and that's how everybody's operating. But wow, I'm so far behind on these questions. Let's see. Affidavits are federal. Affidavits are in federal court. Oh, cool. Heck yeah. I'm glad, buddy. I'm glad that you're still pursuing, your rights to them. I feel like they violated you in a lot of ways. All right. I'm trying to. It's Jen's on the mind. All right, hold on. I'm trying to catch back up, man. This thing is jumping. I should have put one of these things off to the side. Paying twice. We are outside their jurisdiction. There are 3 jurisdictions. Yep. Renee, we must all sharpen each other up. Yep. They don't apply to us. They apply to them. Yeah. All the public policies, codes, and statutes apply to them and what they created, like U.S. citizens and stuff like that. School loans discharge. How? I have a video on discharging debt. If you want to watch that, Weatherby. It's on my profile page of my TikTok, including all of... Guys, this live will be on YouTube. All of my social media is on my website. My website is located on my profile page of TikTok. I have playlists to help re-educate you, unindoctrinate you if you want to watch some of those things. I'm giving misinformation. I'm not a U.S. citizen. You can't be a U.S. citizen. Who's giving misinformation? All my affidavits are available. Yeah, Renee, you can't be a U.S. citizen. You're just the authorized representative for it. All U.S. citizens are slaves under the 14th Amendment. So, under the second 13th Article and Amendment, the Involuntary Servitude Act, which was laid down to start the creation of the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment basically means we all have dual citizenship. The U.S. citizen has dual citizenship, and it's just a corporation, so... Trusts are C jurisdiction. They're not trust or equity jurisdiction. Sorry, Renee. I need your expertise for all this mess. Okay, I will watch your videos. Okay, awesome. School loan discharge. Okay, I already got one. They apply to us, apply to them. We are outside the jurisdictions. There are 3. Yep. There's land, the maritime. No, there's equity. You're missing equity. Land, air, and water. Yeah, air is equity, Renee. Not maritime and admiralty. Land, air, water. Big fan. Can you discharge taxes through a 1099A? So a 1099A is for identifying abandoned property and acquiring something. So you never want to do a 1099A, 1099C without having an agreement between the opposing party that's going to be on that form, or you're committing fraud. So I will always, be very, very wise about how you engage in 1099As, 1099Cs, and stuff. Unless you know what you're doing, you can get in trouble. When we zero out our accounts, shadow work, let go, then at 0 you can control with our attachment. So everything's already kind of zeroed with the double entry bookkeeping. That's why there's a public and a private side of the T-charts, and it's basically always must be 0. Oh, you were responding to something else, Renee. Okay, I'm sorry. I was so far behind. Like, if you could have seen my messages, and I try my best to answer everybody, and I apologize if I was talking like that. Any contract that's created out of fraud is null and void. Yes, if you can call them on that, Renee, 100%, and if you can enforce that. But what happens a lot of times is through our acts and actions, we're acting as if the contract is valid. And it's hard to then come, just like we get a car, for instance. A lot of people will sign up for the loan, get the application, go through it, register the car, try to take it home, and then say, "Oh, it's all fraud." Like, you're enjoying the benefits of the contract by driving around in the car, even though yes, your funds created the promise, the monetization, whatever. But The banks are authorized through Congress to monetize that promissory note. So if you're going to be engaged in the benefits and privileges of a contract and then try to say it's fraud, it's like, okay, which one is it? Was it fraud, or were you enjoying the benefits of the contract that you fully engaged in? If you give up the Social Security card, he won't get Social Security when you reach age. The British monarch owns a property, but it's going to change. Yeah, I think it is changing, but you don't have to change it. I know always. What are you talking about, Guluru? They don't have the original agreement for your real estate property. No, they sell it. They bundle them together and sell it and shred it and basically have proof of the original, but they can't reproduce the original. That's why you can always call them out and say, produce the original wedding signature on this contract, and they won't. All right, guys, thanks for the follows. I'll try to get down to the bottom of this. I might find out. Also found out that the forms in Canada that are equivalent to U.S. Cool, heck yeah. They all these corporations, quote unquote countries, operate about the same, like everywhere. Because all of the judicial systems are the same too. The money's kind of the same. It's not backed by anything. Well, certain areas, the BRICS, I think, are now starting to back their trust. Trust isn't C, Renee. Trust is equity. Trust is air. It's the highest form. I'll send you some information if you want. What everyone is failing to realize is when they became a corp, they are no longer our government. Well, a corporation is just basically, corporations were created to hold debt. That's like the U.S. The U.S. was formed to hold all the debts and obligations of the states and stuff like that, to govern interstate commerce between each state. Ancient one, debts, sin, only can exist with those who break the universal laws, dishonoring people. Yeah, debt, that's how I used to understand as debt is sin. And that's why I didn't really want to go through the DTC originally, is because I learned that even if you go through the DTC, I was trying to live through the private too. You still have to end up going through an agent, and that makes sense. You still have to end up going through an agent who is going to funnel all of the funds back into the public. So I was like ready to go get into the private side of my estate and funnel all the funds back through and not all this stuff. And I was like, I'm getting ready to funnel millions and millions and millions of freaking public debt back into the public. And I was like, man, I really didn't want to do that. But anyway, so yeah, debt, sin. I'm tired of being just a worker. Yeah, we all are. But honestly, what is most important in this life is coming from love and being at peace. You can break down the entire system, but what is most important is your come from, and you want to always come from love and peace and harmony. That's the most important thing. And I've learned from a lot of teachers, and after they've done all their stuff and they've gone in and out of jail and taught all kinds of people and broken everything down, they always say the most important thing is coming from love. Yes, Christ came and paid the debt, but guess what? We create more, right? And one of the worst things that somebody can teach you is that, oh, Christ did it all, we're good, and then we never have to do anything and just walk away. No, he taught that you are one with him and that you need to embody and embrace what it means to self-sacrifice yourself for others. And one of the worst things that you can do is teach that your Savior is coming to protect you and everything's all done. And so then what's the point of living at that point? If everything's already been handled and everything's already done, then what's the point? No, he's telling us that we're one with him and we need to embody, embrace the walk and the cross and sacrifice ourselves for others. Like that's what the meaning is. It's not that, oh, everything's been handled, we're good, we don't have to worry about nothing anymore. Like it's hard to embrace that. How do they get away with governance, the land, with laws of the sea? Well, it's very tricky, but when you start breaking down water travels all over the place. It travels from the sky. It travels from the air down into mountains, into rivers, into lakes, and it's a cycle. Water is the medium of exchange that ties everything together, right? So water does get on the land. And when you break down all the traffic, the collision regulations that were of the, I know what ab initio means, Renee. It's, I think it's, no, not pro tunc, it's from the beginning. I can't remember what ab initio. It's not from the beginning, but I've heard it. Anyway, so water's all over the place. Like it gets into everything. And if you break down all the traffic codes and stuff like that, it is all kind of admiralty in nature, because it's docking. It's from the beginning. Oh, it was. I thought Nunc Pro Tunc. Oh, Nunc Pro Tunc is now for them. Ab initio is from the beginning. So I was right about that. Christ paid the debt. Colossians. Ab initio. Look it up. All right. Follow the administrative process. The liens. One must know who they are to overcome all obstacles. 100%. Mortgage-backed securities. The highest law, which stands over all law, is the land. No, soil is the actual negative. Air is positive. Wage equals bet, contract, tax, and so Renee, like this triangle behind me is the three jurisdictions. Like this is land, air, and water right here. And equity. Well, if you start learning about equity, chancery, equity is the highest form of law because it's not based by public policies, codes, and statutes. It's creating judgments based off of a case-by-case basis in equity and truth and spirit. Equity is the spirit of the law. It is the highest form of law. Common law is great for land. They all have their unique characteristics. International commercial law has, water domain and stuff like that. They're all different in nature, but equity, the spirit, is the highest form of law. And it took me a long time to understand all this stuff. Like I've studied for 10 years, and I used to think, common law was it. And then I found out about equity. It was like law all over again. Like look up equity. It'll blow your mind. Yeah, I have proof that equity is the highest too, because land jurisdiction is bound by the customs of a particular province, and equity is over everything. Could you send the information about the SBC process? I'm interested to know the lie of it all. Yeah, so if you want to go on my website, it is located under class UCL. It's SBC. It's in there. Like I said, I paid $1,000 for it. I went through it. Eventually found out that it was garbage, but it's free. Anybody who wants to go in there. All my stuff on my website is free. Land is temporary. Air is over land. How's it going, man? Haven't reached out. I'm still doing due diligence. Awesome. Yeah, I bet you've got some good information, man. I don't know if you know about the transfer wizard. That's like a newer type of protocol for engaging in transferring securities. There's a couple other things. But like I said, if your dad's got it all, so you're good. Like you're good, man. Yep. What would you recommend for life insurance for elderly loved ones? Wow. You can bond, Joey. You can also, you can use lawful money of substance. You can put things in trust. It depends on if you're trying to protect something. If you're trying to use a public benefit, then you can do that. That's absolutely fine. You can use a public benefit to help engage for protection of a loved one in case they die, because it gets very expensive. Everything is expensive. Like, I'm just working on my car, freaking rotor and brakes. I'm like $600-700 in, like, just freaking need a break. It's like, give me a break. It's a break. All contracts based on fraud are null and void, regardless of participation. Yeah, so that's one of the false teachings that a lot of people put out, Renee, is that contracts are not enforceable and they're all void because there's no such thing as money and all this stuff, and that's not true, because I guarantee you that there's the IRS can enforce private administrative procedures on if you're engaged in public commerce and throw you in jail. It don't matter if you say, oh, it's void because money's not real. It's enforceable, and unless you have the understanding that by your acts and actions, unless you rescind your signature on all those things, you agree. And you have 3 days, according to international commercial law, to rescind your signature on any contract. And if you don't, it stands as a fact. Now, you can change those terms and conditions through private administrative procedure to the guidelines that you want. But if you sign for something and you're engaged in something, it has been upheld by court that you are not under duress. It is not a false contract. So basically, contracts start verbally. the piece of paper is just the memorialization of what transpired. A lot of people think that contracts are just a piece of paper. So all contracts are not null. Basically, that's like when you ask your kid to clean up their room and they say, "Oh, I'm not going to because you can't contract with me." It's like what? No, I can contract with you. I'm gonna whoop your tail if you don't freaking clean your room. Like that. That's an offer, right? That's a contract offer. Contracts are, I don't know why all this stuff spreads like wildfire, all this false information. Everybody eats it up and just regurgitates. It's like all contracts are not null. All contracts are not void. Whenever you give anything of value in exchange for, that's trust law, like all the time. So even though it's a Federal Reserve note is a worthless piece of paper, it's backed by somebody's full faith and credit and signed by a human. And then if you put that into a trust, then it has value because people believe it has value. Just like some people believe the earth is round. It's their value that they hold. I can't find the info on the surface web. I have to search in the dark net archives of old documents. Oh, I believe it. Like I said, Black Swan, I can send you some information on the DTC from the guys who taught me. I know you're not a U.S. citizen. I'm an American state national. What would you call? Yeah, we're all sovereign. All the humans are sovereign. No, common law is not the highest law. It's equity is. I can see the image behind you, so I could screenshot. It's on my website too. If you want this picture of my trust triangle, it's on there. You can download and save it off of my website. How can you find out if an agency took a secret loan under your name or Social Security? By getting an individual master file of the IRS. You can basically do all of the public accounting that ever has been handled through that tax identification number. Yes, your trust operates through equity. Yep. Anything that is a corporation is for profit and does not work for the people. No, not all corporations are for profit. There are not-for-profit corporations, and I'm not wrong. The affidavit on paying twice. What? You're talking about, so it's called the Affidavit of Walker F. Todd. He was a professional banking, witness that came in and basically gave testimony that it is our signatures on promissory notes that banks use as an asset on their books to create funds. Now, true, banks are authorized by Congress to monetize our signatures on promissory notes, but my website is anointednewfoundationofpeace.com, and that is located on my website, or on my profile page of TikTok. So this live will be on YouTube. The audio will be on Telegram. All of my social medias are on my website. My website is located on my profile page of TikTok. I have playlists to help clear up a lot of misinformation that a lot of people have been taught and fed that are regurgitating and going around that can help everybody out if y'all want to watch them. It takes a little while. Foundation, Nature, Spirit, and Commerce. It basically explains how everything between nature and spirit is tied through commerce, and it depends on what you do with your commerce that determines everything. So if y'all want to learn about what I teach, that's what I'm doing. I'm laying the foundations of nature, spirit, and commerce. Hunnick, use the private admin process back to make them prove the debt. Yeah, you can do that. I don't know about courts are yep, they are. Courts are just a show. Where can I find the triangle behind you? It's on my website. They certainly are ab initio from the beginning. You're giving people misinformation. I don't care how long you've studied. I have a paralegal degree. Okay, well, guess what? I know for a fact that equity is the highest form of law, no matter what you say. And it even is broken down by land is lower than air. Air is above land. Air, equity. I understand a lot of people love common law, and you can get remedy, and you can teach all that, and it is great and powerful. So is throw your common law out in the middle of the maritime admiralty law. Guess what? You're going to sink, because if you're engaged in admiralty maritime, common law is garbage. But guess what? If you look at the triangle, all of them are trumped by air, equity, spirit, the highest form of law. Look into chancery. And this is why chancery is the highest form of law, because chancery is based on spirit and equity on a case-by-case basis. It is not written. It is not. There's equitable maxims, But equity is basing everything off of the spirit of a case-by-case basis, not off of the written letter of legalese that somebody else had in the past. That's why it is the most powerful, because it is based on spirit. It is in the Bible, which is a very powerful law book. Equity is the highest form of law, and I'm sorry that you haven't taught that and you've been taught wrong, but I can guarantee you all day long that chancery, equity is the highest form and will always be the highest form. Hands down. Like, I will die on the sword unless you can come and try to prove me. Like, I'm always open for teaching. Prove to me that dirt is more higher than air. Prove to me that common law is more powerful than equity. Like, I will open my gates. You can DM me all day. You can send me 10,000 documents. I will read them all, but I can guarantee you I've already done all the studies. Equity trumps, hands down, because it's the private asset side of the courts. That's why. Common law is public policies that have been agreed upon for common parlances within certain regions and areas, okay, that everybody's agreed upon. In one sense, you could say UCC is common law because it's what everybody uses. But anyway, equity is the highest, and like I said, I'm sorry that you haven't been taught that or know about that, but I guarantee you it is. It is what it is. All right, I think they're saying null and void because they was not given full disclosure. Yeah, that's what they're trying to say, but what I'm getting at is when you are engaging in the benefits and privileges of a contract, you can't go and say, "Oh, it doesn't exist," or "It's null," or "Oh, it's," because it's enforceable. When you are engaged, acts and actions prove that the contract exists, or that it's enforceable. But a lot of people try to say that it's null and void because there was no money of value that was given on it, right? So everybody tries to say contracts, but guess what? Go ahead, enjoy that. Go ahead, get a car and then say, "Oh, it's null and void," and watch what happens. Or get a home and say, "Oh, the contract's null and void," and watch what happens. They're going to take their property back because contracts are enforceable. And you can sit there and wave it's not enforceable all day long, and they're still going to take it from you, because contracts are enforceable. That's just how it is. You're welcome, Hergy. It has absolutely no value because it's privately owned. Money is not made by the people for the people. It's just a medium of exchange. Money. Federal Reserve notes are a. Renee, feel free to leave. Right? If you think I'm teaching misinformation, you think putting freaking state national American nationals on here is like a good teaching. You think common law is the highest, then go teach your own people. Equity and chancery is the highest form. All right, so Admiralty Maritime, not land, says to by. You are rich. If not, you might have missed something in your process. Yeah. Not a little place. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up. It's been a long day, and I got to deal with my car. So I appreciate all you guys. Thanks for the love. I got a freaking dead spot in this live I got to cut out now. I appreciate everything that y'all do. Thanks for all the gifts. Thanks for all the love. I will catch y'all later. It's Friday. Enjoy the weekend. I will see y'all when I see y'all. Bye.